Okay. Hi, this is Dr. Richard Barwell, and welcome back to the Neurologically Based Chiropractic BrainTrust group. This is number 4, I do believe, or 5. I'm trying to lose count with the BrainTrust group. This is Dr. Josh Beaudry from Colorado. I am excited about this one. Josh is doing some amazing stuff, and we've had some incredible conversations since he started with this. So, Josh, welcome to the BrainTrust group.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Let's just start with where did you graduate from? How many years have you been in practice?
So I graduated from Life University East, so Atlanta, and I've been in practice for 7 years now.
7 years. I take it that you probably came out of college with the standard practice model of vertebral subluxation and bone on nerve, and our job was correct spinal curves and et cetera. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. The spinal curve thing, the bone on nerve, and it never really felt right for me. It just never resonated, the bone on nerve thing, and I just kept doing the dogma because I never knew what else to do. But I was searching and searching, and that's what led me to finding the NeuroInfiniti.
Wow, that's the challenge of that vertebral subluxation. How did that affect your practice?
It made me feel like I was lying to the patients because I would adjust them. I knew they would get better, but sometimes they wouldn't get better, and I couldn't explain why they would get better sometimes and why they wouldn't get better other times. The prime patient for me, I had 2 prime patients that actually changed my whole concept. Because I used to do corrective care. I used to do CBP. Okay. That's why you see the funky things in the back. I haven't gotten rid of those yet. I had an ALS patient who had a perfect cervical curve, and yet he still had ALS. So it didn't make sense with that protocol or the structural stuff why he wasn't getting better. And then I had another patient who didn't listen to any of my protocols of doing wobble boards and traction and all that stuff, and he got perfect curves. And so it just didn't match, because if it's a law of health, then it should always follow the law, and it didn't follow the law.
That has a profound effect on a thing called confidence.
100%. 100%. It was very hard. And I would sell it, and but I always had a thought in the back of my head, there's something wrong here. I know when I adjust them, they get better, but when I'm selling about these curves, just isn't true.
You know, that's the thing about, the techniques that are out there, and there's a bunch of different techniques. There's hundreds of them, and they all have great applications, but they don't seem to work all the time or on everybody. And yet, when that happens, sort of the bottom falls out. We go like, what am I really doing here? I always had real challenges with that kind of issue. Have you had any, practice coaching, or been any groups with practice management, or done any other technique besides the CBP?
Yeah, I've gone through. I've done toggle. I've done full spine. I've done CBP with Pettibon, that same type thing. I've done some tonal techniques like Logan. I've searched far and wide trying to find something that would work, and the best I could do was change that technique based on the patient, but still wouldn't get the changes I wanted, and would be dumbfounded because I couldn't tell them why to stay when they felt better.
Yeah, that's a real challenge with it. So today you're sort of using a mix of all of this stuff?
No, in the practice today, I go towards more of tonal techniques. So I go more towards, I'll use toggle, TRT, and Logan Basic are my major techniques, and I bind them all together, mainly TRT.
Great. Okay. What about instrumentation? What did you use in the past?
So in the past, I used the Insight Millennium, the subluxation station, and I had a lot of problems with that because sometimes it would show me what I would expect, and sometimes it wouldn't. And it's a nice generic approach, but it never told me exactly why the person was still sick or still healthy, and why would a bone pushing on a nerve change the temperature? And I know we can get into the autonomic function, but it never truly gave me the answer I wanted. So thermography was okay, muscle tone was okay. I actually got better with muscle tone. We'd see that change all the time. And knowing now what I know about the motor function and muscle tone, that's one of the easier things to change. But I would never get the changes I was expecting to see with somebody get really good and there'd still be problems. Somebody would get worse and they'd look really good. And it really deflated. I'd be scared to actually get the results because I didn't know what I was going to have to say to the people.
Did you start with X-ray as well, like most of us did?
Yeah, I have X-ray as well. Yeah.
Do you use X-ray now?
I will use X-ray now if needed, but I've decreased the amount of X-rays that I'll use because I find with the NeuroInfiniti, it tells me exactly what's going on, and I have no question of what I need to do. The thing that has helped me the most is actually knowing what kind of nerve system I'm adjusting and knowing when to stop. That's what the NeuroInfiniti has given me the most, is knowing when to stop adjusting. And when I do have those understimulated people, yeah, then I can hit them in the ass with a shovel and do everything and boost them up. But that barely ever comes in.
You know, the critical thing about the instrumentation that people need to understand is that we all started without X-ray, and then X-ray came along and chiropractic jumped on that. And then somehow they managed to convince every single chiropractor that they had to have an X-ray machine. I mean, have 15 chiropractors in a small area, and everyone had to have an X-ray machine. God forbid we work together. Then came the substation and the myovision doing the SAMG, the static paraspinals, which elevated us out of that structure look totally, and at least took us to the muscle activity. But now it's time to move on past that when with what we know about how chiropractic directly affects the brain. So let me ask you this question in that transition before we got to that NeuroInfiniti. Somewhere along the way, you had to run across the concepts of neurologically based chiropractic.
Yeah, well, at Life they taught us it, but the problem I had is they taught us we changed the brain. They taught us that we affected the nerve system, and then we never measured it. The closest we had was the substation, and if I ran it up somebody's back, it'd be changed each time. So it wasn't valid enough for me. So I always knew we were affecting the neurology. I couldn't read it. I couldn't figure it out, and it was annoying me because I'd tell them one thing and then show them something else. It was almost like a bait and switch. I'd talk about the brain and then show them the spine.
Yeah, and now you back them up, you become a bone doctor again.
Exactly.
So let me just go back on this then. So you go from the vertebral subluxation. Where did you run across the stuff that I talk about with neurologically based chiropractic? How did you find that? Where
I started hearing some of that stuff was, what's her name? Heidi Havock's work. I started hearing about that. And when we talk neurological based, we never really got the brain though. We never got that deep into the brain. We would get into the reflexes, but there was not really anything talking about it. And I would just make deductions myself based on some applied kinesiology that I do with my patients, that it has to be affecting the brain because there's nothing else that would have changed it that quickly. And why would the bone get stuck there? I just couldn't figure that out. So I guess that was a deduction I made myself. But as soon as I heard about, well, this drives this and the brain drives the body, and then going from the passive state of just bone and joint to active state of muscle, and then going right to the sensory and integration and conceptual of how the body controls itself through nerve function, through brain specific, it just clicked and it made too much sense. And every patient I've told has said that, yeah, I agree with you. They don't even argue with me anymore. They ask me when they can start. They don't say, well, I don't agree, this is me. They go, I want to start now. When can we start? And the problem I have is I have to finish my report of findings.
Yeah. Where did you first run across the NeuroInfiniti?
The NeuroInfiniti, it was actually at homecoming, I believe 3 years ago, or 2 years, I don't remember. And I met Dee Dee, and she put me on a scan, and then I was actually in your class, and I went to every seminar you had, and it broke my subluxation dogma that I was stuck in. And I won't lie, it angered me for a couple months. And that's why I didn't buy the machine right away. It annoyed me because I felt like I had been violated. The school had violated teaching me the right thing. And I mulled over it for a while, and eventually it just clicked, and that's when I knew I had to go that way.
So now you bring this thing back, you bring your mindset to neurologically based, and chiropractic is something bigger than a bone out of place, that the adjustment, which is still important and still involves the spine, because that's where we get the greatest access to sensory input to the brain. How did you introduce this? What was the very first step that you took in your practice?
So I'm kind of like a slinger. I don't really do anything slow. I just gave everybody an exam for free. I did like 150 exams for free to see what would happen. And I just examined everybody, and I said, first month, everybody gets it for free. And so I did that, and then I started learning how the body would change, how the exams were different. And it was nice because you could see somebody you knew was different than somebody else, but they could both have the same look in x-rays. But when you look at the NeuroInfiniti, it was night and day. You could see where they were stuck, where the problems were. And so I did it to show myself what was going on, how is this working, and what do we do? The problem I ran into was I didn't know how to sell it. I knew how to do the scan, I knew what it would do, but I wasn't grounded enough in knowing what was going on until I actually did the 2 seminars in Atlanta. And I really have to hype for people to understand is if you want to learn how to actually go through and sell this to your patients, so you have to know it yourself in and out. And I went and started reading the books like that you recommend, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and Joe Dispenza books, and Changing Your Brain, seeing from the inside out what's really going on. And then when you know that when the patient says something, you know the answer, because you can't say it's the bone on the nerve anymore. You have to start talking about the maladaptation in the brainwaves.
How's that been going with the patients?
They love it. They love it. They feel empowered that now they're not crazy because they have depression or anxiety. Now they're not some victim that has MS anymore, that I can show them why they're sick, that I can show them why they're growing disease. I can show them why they don't have the health that they should have, that when they come in and they're told it's an idiopathic disease and they're crazy, that I show them that, yeah, it is in your head and you're not crazy. This is why you're sick. They get empowered because they feel when they can train themselves and they're in control of their own health, that they know what to do to help themselves.
What's this done for your practice?
For my practice, my conversion rate is between 95 to 100 every month. And it's not even at 95 anymore. I'm running 99% conversion. So what it's done is it's changed the talk of my patients from low back pain and ouch and hurts and this hurts to, doc, how do I get myself into that alpha frequency you're talking about? How do I train myself to control the stress response with that breathing better? How do I do these things? And they're excited to come in. It's not me asking them and forcing them to do anything. They want to know how they're doing when they get their re-exam, how much better they're going to be. And, stuff's happening I've never seen before. Why doesn't everybody else do this? So it's a different conversation. Fantastic.
What's it done for your income?
My income has tripled, so it's increased that substantially. It's a lot easier. It's the nice thing now is that my income is not dependent on me adjusting. That I adjust people and then they train themselves with both neuro and biofeedback, and then I do neuro entrainment as well. And I can adjust them, and then they're still in the office for another 45 minutes, and I'm not the one having to do everything. So it's nice because I still see them get changed. I see them get changes quicker. I don't have to see them as often as I used to, so I don't run into well, I can't come in 4 days a week. No, they're coming in a couple times a week, and they're getting the same changes as they used to come in 4 times a week. And I personally don't have to spend more than 5 minutes with the person, usually a lot less. And when they get trained, they leave, and they're very euphoric. My staff calls it they leave with the spa face because they're really happy.
Fantastic. That's the way it's supposed to be done. So your job in the office is strictly adjusting them,
Yes.
meeting the new patients, giving the report, because you don't do the exam either, right?
Correct. The staff does all the exams. Now, in my state, I have to do a couple things by law, physical tests, and I do them bare minimum I have to do by law. But the actual test itself, the staff does all that. And then with the training, the staff hooks them up on the bio and neurofeedback, hooks them up, teaches them, and I'm not physically there.
Super. That's what we're looking for. What about the quality of your new patients? How do you get new patients?
The thing is, I will still do screenings and events like that, but what I've noticed is the new patients now, because we're doing stuff where they can tangibly feel the difference, it's just not pain, it's I can sleep through the night now, my anxiety's gone, my depression's gone, my MS is gone, like all these things, it's referral based. I haven't worked an event in 3 months, and I'm still averaging 20 new patients a month, and it's all referrals. So now that I start working my events, I'm going to have double to triple that. So it's a very big referral-based practice, which every doctor wants to have.
So you're getting ready for another associate before long because you have to be slammed.
Yeah, you're very, very busy. Yes. And that's the training we're going towards, is another associate. Yes.
Super. And I know that you have 2 units, right? 2 NI units.
Yes.
So
they're going real full. They're booked out. The problem we're running into now is having enough units for the number of people.
And so we do have smaller units that people can start doing some of the training on smaller units. You don't have to keep getting the big unit. We have ones that you can take, and you can sell some smaller ones so they take home and they do practicing. I don't know if you have the EV unit that fits on the finger.
No, I don't have that one yet.
Oh man, you got to get this one, because this one it does skin conductance, heart rate variability, and hand temperatures, and it just fits on the finger. And it's a 5-minute session that they work off an app off their phone, and you can rent them. We've got people who have like 5 of these, and they're renting them to patients. And when they get home, you tell them what to do, and it sends a report to your office that they're doing it.
Okay, so yeah, so then that would decrease the amount of time I'd have to have them in the office.
Yeah,
as well.
And those things, they're available. They're not that expensive. They're certainly not like buying a NeuroInfiniti. So this continues to unfold. We have doctors that we talk to that say, "Gee, I have a very busy practice. I don't have time for this. I don't have room for it. Gee, it costs a lot of money." You want to address those 3 issues?
So the time isn't going to change. What's going to actually happen is you're going to spend less time needing to explain stuff to the patients, because they physically get to see what's going on. And you spend all of your time educating and adjusting, doing the things the doctor's supposed to be doing. Because when they're doing the biofeedback or the neurofeedback, they see where they're screwed up, and they're not asking, when do I get a stop? They're asking, why can't I get better? Why am I not better? So it's a different conversation from, well, I feel better, I don't want to come anymore. It's, when do I get my body healthy so my heart disease goes away? That's a whole different question.
Yes.
And so the time overall, you will spend less time. For the finances, if you run this machine right, I paid it off in 2 months. And so it's not a hard thing to pay off. You know, $17,000, $18,000 when your machine's making you, my machines, and I charge very little because I'm charging cash for people. My machines will make $300 to $400 an hour, and I'm not in the room. And so that right there is a money maker in itself. So you don't have to be doing everything. And once you set the person up, we actually train the patients. So we don't even have the staff set them up anymore after 2 to 3 visits. The patients actually do it themselves, besides the neurofeedback. So that takes care of that. So time and money, I haven't seen as an issue. And what was the last one?
The room that you need. I don't have enough room for this.
Well, the funny thing is if you have a pair of headphones, you can line 6 of these units up side by side if you wanted and run the whole thing. And I run a bunch of my machines out of my report of findings room. So I'm using the room to make money when I'm not using the room. So the report of findings are only done multiple times a week. So that room, with the space I have, I could run 6 units out of here, and people have no problem sitting right beside the other person because they're engaged in their own health. If you multi-purpose the room like most people should so that your square footage is making money, then I don't see a problem at all.
What about relationships with other health professionals? Have you had any exchange on this basis?
Yes, and that's where I'm expanding into. The psychologists love it. They refer everybody. They love it. They love it. They love it. So that's where my big outreach to people is. And I know you told me about this, and I didn't really listen to much because I was overwhelmed in the beginning. But now I'm really seeing how this applies, because my patients who have depression are going to these people, telling them they're getting better. The psychologist then calls and says, "What are you doing?" You tell them you're doing neurofeedback and biofeedback, and their jaw drops and they want to come see how you're running this stuff, because it's usually too cost prohibitive for them. So they love this product.
Well, fantastic. So the last question I have to ask you here basically is, you got any recommendations for people that are listening to this?
The recommendation is if you're very analytical, which most doctors are, is have it done. Find a doctor, try it out, have that doctor do the test on you. And if you can't do that, go to an event where there's a homecoming or something and have Dee or one of the staff members run it on you, and you'll see how you're really doing. And then once you get to the fact of understanding that the subluxation is not a bone-on nerve, that the subluxation, yes, the bone-on nerve doesn't happen, but it actually causes the rotation because of the brain dynamic, you'll see what's actually going on. You'll be able to start learning things. And I personally pioneered a couple techniques where we can change muscle tone very quickly. It's really cool. I don't want to go too much into it, but after I get it published, I'll let you guys know. But what I really want you to say is try it out on yourself first. See how it does for you. And once you've tried it out, if you don't go down that path, it's either you don't want to learn anything new, and I don't want to be mean. A lot of doctors are lazy. They just don't want to change. They're making their money the one way. They don't want to sell anything new. But the problem is that you have, and this is what a lot of people whine about, physical therapy and massage, all these other people doing musculoskeletal things. When you go into neurology, there's nobody talking about what we talk about. And you're going to be the guy that everybody wants to see. And if you deal with a lot of insurance, they have no way to rebut what you're saying. I literally had an insurance company spend 25 grand trying to disprove what I found, and they couldn't. They sent the guy to a psychologist, to a chiropractor, to a neurologist, and they couldn't rebuke anything I had. So you can get the full claim if you're an insurance person, because the data literally speaks for itself. So you're gonna have a machine that it's not about how we feel anymore. You're gonna show why the person's sick. And you're going to go down this path, and you're going to feel so empowered that it's not about, hey, doc, I feel this way or that way. You go, this is why you're healthy. This is why you're sick. And you're going to feel so confident that it's going to be a no-brainer to just buy it.
Is this sort of like how you do your report of findings? I know you have an incredible report. People look at this and they go like, oh, there's too much stuff on there and it's going to take too long to explain it. How do you do it?
So for me, I'm a big education guy. So my whole report of findings is literally the stress response and how it causes all the different diseases. So I just take your body, how it responds to stress, and the adaptive and maladaptive chart, and Dr. Barwell has that one. And I show them how every problem that they have is a byproduct and stuff they haven't even told me. And then they open up and go, I need this for my family. I need this for everybody. This is different. This isn't low back pain and headache stuff. Yeah, I understand. I need this. So for my report of findings, if you wanted to do it quick, you can get it done in 10 minutes. I like showing them everything, so it takes me 45.
Okay, so that's what the thing about this. Everybody has their own application with it and what works for them. And so we try to offer a whole bunch of different approaches for this. Listen, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day. I know that you've got a bunch of stuff going on around you, and we caught you on short notice. But maybe we get a chance to come back and visit you again and do the part 2 on this. Definitely. All right. Well, we'll see you somewhere down the road. And thank you again, Dr. Josh Beaudry, for your time.
Thank you once again, Dr. Barwell, for the empowering our profession.